So, guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it is Sunday, and me and Andrew, we're getting ready for an investor meeting tomorrow. Andrew had a bright idea and said, let's go through it properly. And I said, why not? Let's make it a podcast, right? So, Andrew's bright idea, he's had this conversation about 50 times, if not more, with with the teams he helps get prepared for investors, and why not have it as something that everybody can take value? So, Andrew, if you want to give it while people don't know who you are, just give a quick snippet and why should they trust you that this investor presentation is, or preparation presentation podcast is better than the next one.
Yeah, sure. Well, so it's Sunday morning. I just went on my run. I'm wearing a bathrobe, so this is like raw. But this is a presentation that I've given probably 50 plus times. So I've given it as a mentor at Techstars and 500 Global and just countless other panels and discussions with early stage founders who are getting ready to go and do their first fundraise. A lot of this might be a little different. Like some of the things might be a little cleaner and faster with AI. I did this in 2020. So this is basically built off of what I did to raise a $4 million seed round in 2021, 2022. So, obviously different market, different abilities, different, just general startup climate. But most of the reason I like this as a presentation is because most of the approach here, I think, is just universal, because ultimately it is a human-to-human thing. It's sort of human psychology, human trust, and just running a really clean process to get a fundraising round done. So I'm really excited to do this. This is going to be sort of roughly based on some real stuff. I've tried to anonymize it as much as I can. I think it should be universally useful, and I really hope you guys get some value from it. And Shane, for you've got some meetings coming up. So Shane is one of our portfolio CEOs who we backed early. We've had a long relationship with him and his company. So since they're gearing up to do a seed round, they've got a really exciting kind of set of circumstances, and we thought, why don't we just turn this into some content for everyone and share the love here. So that's kind of the backdrop.
Let's jump right into it. So I think the most eye-opening piece that where we were at, so I don't know where you want to stop, but the most eye-opening piece for me was Andrew's journey as a this was second-time founder, right? But we're going to go through it. But the prospecting effort of Andrew's outreach, I think, is 160, 170 plus attempts. And just the way it kind of trickled down and the filtered down process. And then he mentioned there was one pivotal moment where a lot of things clicked. Also, there's probably an eye-opening piece that most people are not going to recognize, and that's that circle back moment for those no's. And as that transitioned into, obviously, a number of wins, that filled your round, and it sounds like it was somewhat oversubscribed by the time you got to the end of the process, which I think is really cool. So, Andrew, where do you want to kick it off, mate?
Yeah, okay. Well, just on that point, I'm going to focus. Okay, a lot of this stuff, there's a lot of fundraising tips and tricks and things you can read and all that. I'm going to focus on some really counterintuitive things. Because I'm going to assume that most of you guys watching this have already done some research and seen some content, read some blogs and read some stuff. All that stuff's great. There's a bunch of just best practices out there, and I kind of follow most of them. But there's a couple of big counterintuitive unlocks that I think are really important to give as at least ideas. And you can use them, choose to use them, choose not to. If it's right for your situation, I think you'll know. But that's kind of how I want to focus. And this is, I'm going to adapt some of this to some more current things, because again, a lot changes over 5-6 years. But just so that folks know, I am an active investor even all the way up till now. I think we did our last deal about 6 weeks ago. And so, and I speak to pre-seed founders all the time and pre-seed investors all the time just through my work at Darwinian. So we're going to focus on some fundamental, just psychological and process points, and then wherever possible, I'll kind of adapt it to what the market looks like today.
Before we start, one thing I love, Andrew, is process of elimination. What's the one thing that 90% of founders get wrong before an investor call? I heard it's about the debt. So my mistake, honestly, was I thought having the coolest deck in the world, and that would separate myself from, and again, you only know what you know, but that was mine until I realized, mate, you are dead wrong. So for you, what would you say is the kind of one thing that most founders get wrong on their investor calls?
Yeah, the deck is not that important. I think the deck is important, fine. I mean, people are using memos now. I'm seeing a lot of like Notion pages, memos, decks. I think it's all important, but I think what investors really want to see is energy and passion, but also like a measured energy and passion. So what I mean by that is like your deck should be clean, and I think it should be kind of minimal, especially for that first couple of interactions. Let the investor, I think the biggest thing that folks will do wrong, even after having, I can only imagine, like, this sounds like such a soundbite because it gets said all the time, but just keep it minimal to start. Like, I think tell the story in a very minimal and sort of emotionally compelling way. And the biggest enemy is not that you forget to disclose some fact or like some like extra point. Like, you're not selling with data. It's not like a data dump. Like, it really truly is triggering an emotion. Like, you're trying to trigger an emotion. And the emotion is, this is potentially going to be enormous, and I have an opportunity to get involved now that will not last forever. Like, that's what you're trying to, like, everything you're doing is trying to like trigger that. And it should be true, you know, like, this is not meant to like, you're not trying to synthesize that. That should be true. Like, if you're actually meaningfully going to go into Silicon Valley, which is right here, I'm in downtown San Francisco, there's tons of VCs within 10 miles of me here. If you're going to go into the NFL and go into the like world-class VC market, your opportunity better actually realistically, like truthfully, match those criteria. It's got to be a really big, earth-shaking thing, potentially. It doesn't have to be yet, but it has to very potentially have the ability to be an enormous category-defining generational company, and it has to be moving quickly. So it's like, get on now because there's an opportunity now, and if you wait, it's going to be a whole different animal in like 6 months, 12 months. So that's got to be actually genuinely be true, and then you have to communicate that properly, and that's what you're architecting for. You're not architecting for disclosing all the cool stuff. You're not architecting for disclosing all the cool features or all the fun like accolades you've gotten, or you know, you went to Harvard or some fancy thing, or you know, any of that. Some of those can be sprinkled in there as supporting details, but the real thing in a very short period, in like under 10 minutes, you got to be able to tell this story in a way that triggers that feeling. So that's the whole ball game. Everything else is just meant to support that. And if you overdo some of the other things, it can actually damage that. And I think that's like the counterintuitive thing. Like, folks will get in there and they'll try to explain all these details and really support everything they say. And that's fine. Leave that for the conversation number 2 or 3 or 4. But for conversation number 1, you just met these folks. You know, you got to trigger that feeling that it could be a huge thing. If everything works right, it's going to be massive, and there's an opportunity that only exists right now to get involved at this level. So that's
when you're compartmentalizing that story. So let's say we've got a movie that's let's just call it a 2-hour movie, and we don't have time to show them the 2-hour movie, so we got to tell this investor this is the coolest part of the movie, right?
Right.
So what part of the movie, the story, are you revealing to the investor? Is it how it begun, where it kind of changed things, where you see it going? Like, what do you think is the most important on a 5-year journey? Day 1, I've just got the idea.
Yeah.
Year 5, the 365th day, I have exited and sold my company. So for you, what is the perfect moment of the story to reveal?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have that example. So that maybe I'll lead with that. I can lead with the way that I designed our presentation itself. And this is after like dozens and dozens of revs and rejections. And the one thing that we kind of realized, and I've really just built into all this, is that sweating over like what order, okay, which slide comes before what, and like, okay, what details do we disclose here? The answer is probably almost always like, take the details out. And as far as order goes, if you're doing it right, the core story should be so short that it almost doesn't matter. And what we realized is that, again, like the biggest enemy was people checking out, like the audience, like checking their phone, like thinking about picking up groceries that like later, or like, oh, what does my wife want to do on the weekend? Like, the biggest enemy is apathy here, especially if you're remote and especially if you just met these folks. So we architected the whole thing to feel like an organic conversation with a bit of a dialogue going back and forth, a bit of a banter. The actual most important story part was very short. And then what we did was we had a very big appendix. So I had a very solid blueprint whenever I went into these. And I did like 100 plus of these like early pitch meetings. And the blueprint was the first 10 minutes was introductions. Like you're just human. It's all human to human. So you're meeting these people. Tell me about your firm. Okay, cool. Tell me about your career. How did you find the firm? Any big wins? Any big losses? What's your expertise? What value do you add as an investor? Like, get them talking. People like to talk about themselves, and it gives them the chance to tell you the hero version of themselves, which is really useful and helpful because you want to give them a chance to let you know how cool they are and like really kind of like set the stage. A lot of people skip over this. They're like, great, okay, why don't I tell you the story? Like, don't do that. Like, talk to them, let them feel seen and heard and respected and be curious and all that. Usually that's 2-3 minutes. And then you know, what's natural after that? In a human-to-human interaction, hey, why don't I introduce myself? I'll give you my background. That's actually really important, and you don't use slides for that. You want to tell the story of your career, but in a very careful way. So pick and choose the parts of your career that tell this hero's journey of you being a very, very capable person and just happen to have been in the right place to see this enormous economic development happen. And it's a bit of it, you got to thread the needle a little bit because a lot of folks will lean into either being very kind of obnoxious and bragging and self-aggrandizing, or they'll kind of undersell it and kind of be a little timid and shy about it. So to do it right, you say, you know, hey, my name's so-and-so, I've had the unique opportunity to do this and this and this, and the things that you quote or cite need to be, it's like, and what do you know, like that led me to be in this amazing crux of like these big changes happening, and I was able to spot this enormous schism in the economy. Like from an investor's perspective, they spend thousands of hours just ruminating about what the future will look like. And they see the world as this like tapestry of businesses that are trying to address different bits of demand out there in the world. And they look at, and they have incredible information gathering because they meet 5 to 10 incredible entrepreneurs a day for fucking a decade. So they're hearing about like the best and brightest new technologies, and hey, maybe there's some big opportunity here, or some company is dropping the ball here, or some enormous new market opportunities coming out, or whatever. That's where VCs live. Like they live in that tapestry of economic openings, and then they live in this tapestry of like people, founders, that determine a smart way to go and capture those market opportunities. So when you're introducing yourself, play into that a little bit. Like, hey, like, you know, started as, and be a little approachable with it. Like, hey, from a small town, I was an intern here and here, but man, I started to really catch on to this one thing. And then I worked for these incredible people, got this skill set that really helped me see this thing. And you can humble brag a little bit, like, yeah, like, you know, company did really well, or I got promoted really quickly, or I got into some incredible program, or like got a patent or whatever. But just those things need to gently remind them that you're incredibly capable, but more importantly, reveal that you want them to start thinking, oh, maybe this is the person who like saw this thing that I haven't really seen, or maybe they have seen it, but like, oh man, maybe this is the right person to actually tackle this opening in the economy. So that's your intro story, and it's really important, and that should just be casual and natural and like flowing. It's like, hey, I did this and that, I come from this background, great to meet you. Oh, how did we meet? We met through so-and-so, I really enjoy his perspective on whatever. You know, oh, I've heard of your firm, great thing. Like, but then you talk about your own background in the way that supports this thesis that you're very capable and you have a really brilliant insight into something. Chances are the VC has already seen the opening in the economy. Like they've already mapped it out. So you're really just explaining to them in your introduction why you're the person who saw it well, and that you're very capable and that you're trustworthy. So that's your intro. So that's maybe 3-4 minutes, right? Excuse me. And then in your intro, it should, again, just flow naturally. So, okay, so my career got me up to here, and this opportunity just was so obvious we couldn't ignore it anymore, and that's what led us to start this company. It should be a completely simple flow from your intro. So your intro, you know, tell about your background, and your background led you to this discovery, and this discovery was so enormous that we had to start this business. And then you can also slowly cue in your co-founders too. So yeah, we met so-and-so. He was just the perfect fit in terms of skills. Brought him in and we got going. And boy, has it been a ride. Like the demand was here. The needs were there. We were able to match it, da-da-da. You haven't even shown, like don't even screen share it. You want the full camera screen to be on you at this point. So it's just chatting. And then you do your screen share, and here I'll do it right now. I can show you guys an anonymized deck that we use just for practice.
What do you think while you're pulling that up? What do you think about certain situations? I've met a few different you see prospects, buyers, investors, and there are some investors or people that will kind of their eyes divert. It seems like they're not paying attention to you or losing interest in what you're saying. Their eyes might be on this screen. And sometimes I feel like it's done to distract you or to take you off your game.
It's like a power game?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but what do you do in those situations where you feel like my story is boring the shit out of this guy right now or this girl? Do I change it? Do I say like, hey, catch him off guard? Like, what do you do in those situations? Do you try to recover it or do you just carry on, knowing that you're losing them?
I'll try to, sometimes that happens, but usually that only happens if you're monologuing and just taking up too much air. Yeah. So it's a signal. I mean, we would go through all of our rejections and sort of poke around and be like, okay, we lost him here, we lost him here, we lost him here, right? So that means you're doing something wrong. Now, there's some things you can do, like if you notice that, you can say, like, does this match what you're seeing? Or like, I'd actually be curious to know, like, what are you seeing in this development? Like, and let them talk. Be like, oh, hey, yeah, we saw an entrepreneur do this and that, or, oh, yeah, we're really interested in this space for this reason. You can even just ask them, what interests you about this space? Like, you took this call. Why did you take this call? Is this a space that interests you? Is this something that your firm is looking at? Tell me what you're seeing, and let them give a little preamble. Like, that's perfectly valid. And you can do that mid-intro. Like, conversations are not meant to be just one person talking for 20 minutes. Like, that's like that. Again, human to human, that's bullshit. Don't do that. So
what do you think are the most powerful questions to ask? Or what do you think the most powerful question, most insightful question to ask an investor is when you're in those moments? Like a very captivating answer that can lead you, again, either back on track, it can get you to a nice place. What would you say that question would be for them?
Well, really, like, just be a good conversationalist. Like, if you're like 3 or 4 minutes into a monologue and you're talking about your background, just switch it up a little bit and say, like, do you guys, like, is this something that you guys see? Like, is this a direction that you guys have seen? Or like, I'd love to hear about your experience here or whatever. And you can just ask that, like, let them talk, like, just shut up, like, say it, like, throw it back to them just for a moment. And again, like, the point is to, like, jolt them, like, bring them back, let them feel smart again. A lot of times it's like an ego interplay too. So let them feel like a smart participant in the conversation. It's a little different from sales. I have a whole separate talk on, like, the differences between talking to VCs and customers. It's like, that is a lot of people screw that up. But an investor, you're allowed to be a little smarter than them, but you still have to be respectful of who they are and what's going on. Like, they actually want you to be in that space smarter than them. But you still want to let them talk. So what are you seeing? Like, hey, does this match? Like, da-da-da. Hey, I saw you made an investment in this thing that was interesting. Like, maybe know a couple of those things. Yeah. But it's this ego play where you're like, you're smart too. Talk to me. Like, does this match? What are you seeing? Like, da-da-da.
Get it going. Get a conversation flowing and bring them in.
And that comes, and I'm going to come back to that big time for the last 10 minutes of the call. So usually these are 30-minute screening calls. Like, that's just kind of the standard. So that's the intro part. So the intro part flows right into the early preamble of what the company is. Hey, we found these co-founders. They're brilliant. And then you can just tell them, like, okay, so if that all makes sense, why don't I actually share some slides or share a little bit of content here, and I'll walk you through the business and the opportunity. That's like the smoothest, most natural transition. They're engaged. They feel heard. They know that they're speaking to, like, a real player who has great credentials and has seen this thing and da-da-da-da. So that's kind of it. And then at that point, I would do the screen share, which I will do right now. Okay, so you guys can see that. So, I would have the logo up. And for this particular example, I mean, it's not too hard to tell. You can go through my LinkedIn. This was in 2020, so it was a video AI tool way back before AI was really that prominent. It was back when they called them deep fakes.
Loom.
It was like generative video. Yeah, Loom was new. Vidyard was new. Just AI was nowhere near as big as it was. So we had this product. I mean, the short version is we had this product that allowed you to mass personalize a video letter. So in sales, we were sending these manual video notes of like intro messages. We'd say like, hey, Stephanie, hey, Megan, hey, Steve, hey, Billy, hey, whatever. And then we would have this whole video message where we said, you look like a great customer. We'd like to show you this thing. And we were booking meetings and like generating business manually. So my background story for this startup was that we had done this thing manually and it worked really well and it was great. And we finally found this AI tool that allowed mass personalization of video. So that's just, quick backdrop. So again, so then I introduced my co-founders. So I had already told, and I would just kind of casually say, hey, I've already given you my background. You know what I'm doing. I've been in this space for a long time. I was really excited about a year ago to meet my co-founder, and my co-founder was the perfect puzzle piece to what we were doing manually. So had a ton of great experience. He had been in the space for a long time. He'd been a founder before. Just give them all the points about why this person is a great ally. And then, in this case, we had recruited another head of AI who had, a really great set of experience there. And I just really quickly walked through it. But you don't need to dwell on this too long because the point is, none of us are the star of the show here. Like me and the founders are not, the star of the show here is this enormous $100 billion market opportunity that we're chasing after. And we're just puzzle pieces that fit into that. So, I happen to be in a great privileged position to see it. And I found two folks that were really great to help us go and tackle it. And then I hit them with a little bit of, I call it investor Viagra. So, I kind of talk about these billion-dollar behemoths, like these massive companies. And again, this has maybe changed a little bit, but what I'm doing is I'm building this pattern matching tempo. So I say, hey, look, we zoomed out a little and thought, hey, this isn't just a little gimmicky thing. They're billion-dollar companies, and there's huge breakthroughs in sales that have happened that have generated billion-dollar businesses. So in the 2000s, there were these enormous companies that had figured out how to do dialing at scale. So huge dialing companies that allowed you to actually, because sellers are all about spoken word, they're on the phone all the time, so that was a huge unlock. And then in the 2010s, in that decade, mail merge started coming out. So there was ways to mass personalize written things. And again, this seems so silly now, but back then that was a huge deal. So you could say, hey, first name, hey, last name, hey, I saw you're at company name, da-da-da-da-da. So, HubSpot was there's a whole pile of companies that became enormous off of the back of that. And then our positioning here was that, all right, what's next in sales is video. And this is in the middle of COVID, by the way. So everyone was locked down. Video was the only way any business was getting done. And so we made the point here that video doesn't scale. It's really powerful, and it's the new fabric of making business decisions, but it doesn't scale. And we've got this opportunity to build a scalable company, and it should become this billion-dollar thing. So this is a demo. It's not set up to click on right now, but we had it set up in a slide hosting service that allowed us to just click the video, and essentially it would show the original video, and then it would show a fully realistic synthetic video where this person was greeting Sam or Katie or Steve. So that was kind of the point of this. And again, in 2020, this was earth-shaking. In 2021, 2022, this was crazy stuff. So people were like, man, all right, that's believable, and it doesn't look fake, and as a sales tool, that's pretty powerful. We then said, all right, we've got this one happy customer. They had this enormous spike in reply rates. So their reply rate went from under 1% to 4%. This is for completely stone cold prospecting, cold emails. I didn't really dwell too long on that. And then I talked about traction. Hey, we've got, some revenue. Now, the cool thing about this, 90K is not a lot, but it's indicative of a very repeatable machine because these are all very normal companies doing very normal things. And there's, tens of thousands of companies with exactly identical problems that we can go and chase. So that was kind of the way I framed this story. Now, the market slide, you shouldn't spend too long on this because if it's not obvious, something's wrong. Like the market should just be very easy to understand to be enormous. So for us, I didn't spend too long on this, but I said, hey, if we just do video outreach for the sales reps in the US, that's multiple billions. If we can do this for marketing, that's even more, tens of billions. If you can build this like completely addressable synthetic video API for businesses, that's like unbelievably big. I didn't spend, again, these are like 20-second slides because, you're just trying to get through it.
Very simple too. Yeah, they're very simplified. I love how simplified it is.
Very simple. And I'll come back to why there's like a really interesting hook, like a psychological hook here that's important for the last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes is where it all goes down. So, all right. So talk about the breakthrough. There's generic synthetic video. We've found a way to make it a lot less expensive. You don't need to do so much per person. It's da-da-da-da-da. And then we've got these milestones. Again, this should all just kind of, like, if you've set up the table properly, these are all just understood to be, like, great. And then that's it. Now, here's the thing. So that whole presentation should have taken 5 to 7 minutes. And that's the only part where you're kind of speaking uninterrupted. Now, on the other side of it, the VC, the investor, like they're flipping through this and they're like listening to your whole thing. And this is what VCs do. Again, it's a bit of an ego thing, and to their credit, they've seen a lot. And so they're going through this and they're thinking, okay, maybe, but maybe not. And like, maybe not. And they're thinking, okay, but maybe you didn't think of this. Or like, maybe you didn't think of that. And like, maybe there's some other thing here. Like they're hole pokers. Their whole career, because they meet frigging hundreds of founders a year, and they say no to most of them. Like they're professional hole pokers. And in their minds, they're poking holes. They're like, cool, okay, but maybe not. Cool, but maybe not. Cool, but maybe not. Cool, but maybe not. Now, in the back of their minds, they're thinking, but maybe it could, like maybe this could be real. Like, I see some issues potentially, but if all of this is true, maybe they're right. And then you kind of let it stop, and you're like, so that's really the very core fundamental story of who we are, what we're building, and why it's going to be enormous. Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you're seeing in the market. Again, you flip it back to them. You're trying to turn this into as much of a dialogue as possible. So let them talk. Now, here's the key moment. They're going to come back to you and poke holes, and they're like gleeful about it. They're like, oh boy, now I get to show how smart I am, and like bust, like just cause all sorts of havoc and just like dunk on this poor entrepreneur, right? That's kind of what, and that's it. And let them do it. Like let them ask some stuff. Now, what we had done, because we had dozens and dozens of these calls, is we knew exactly what their holes were going to be, and we had like 25 appendix slides, like boom, 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 boom. And it was all in the appendix. And this is very intentional. So like,
wow,
our appendix had answers to frigging everything. And so the whole psychology here is that they would say, man, why didn't you think about blah, blah, blah? And you'd be like, like, okay, like, fuck you, dude. Like, no, we didn't. Obviously, respectfully, like, you're like, oh, yep, we thought of that. Here's the competitive landscape. We've obviously thought of all these folks. Here it is. And then they'd say, well, okay, but I don't know about, whatever. Like, do you have, like, pedigreed people? And we're like, yep, we've got a guy from SAP. He's piloting it. Like it was just, that was kind of the psychology. I don't need to go through all of these. I think you guys get the point, but you would figure out all of the like, boom, like, oh, they shut you down kind of moments. And you'd already just calmly be like, yeah, that's a great point, and we have an answer to it. And, oh, that's a great point too. Give them a little tummy rub. Ooh, good question. And then like, boom, like here's our answer to it. So that, I'll kind of stop the screen share, but that's basically the idea. How do I end the share?
It is ended. It stopped.
Oh, you stopped it. Okay, cool. So that's the psychology of the presentation itself. And I'm kind of going backwards. Usually I start with the thing that gets you all the meetings, which I'll talk about now. But the presentation itself was very carefully designed to keep them engaged, make them feel heard, make them feel special and important, but also like have concrete, respectful, and really solid answers to everything that they say. And the reverse of that for us, failed every time. If we tried to put all the data in the appendixes into this perfect like 12, 13 slide thing where we had the details and, oh, the competitors are here and, oh, the market is here and like, oh, and we have SAP and like da-da-da-da-da-da. It didn't land because we were just talking and talking and talking and talking, and they never got the chance to show how smart they were. There was some like psychology ego play there.
I get that.
Yeah. And so we hit them with
makes
a
sense.
very simplified version of, hey, we're going to be $1 billion company, end of story. And they're like, bullshit, for this reason, this reason, this reason. And we're like, nope, this reason's covered, this reason's covered, this reason's covered. It forces them to talk. Like, it forces them to put their fucking phone away and like really try to spar with you a little bit. And you're like, yep, cool, yep, cool, yep, cool. And then it's like, yep, we've got a round open, we've started closing some checks. Like, I'll give you 2 weeks kind of thing. Like, here's what we'd like to do.
That part sounds interesting, Andrew. So that part, I don't think people. So two things I've heard is the typical kind of dynamic, this power dynamic that you're talking about, the typical dynamic where you have a founder and an investor, and I've heard this is actually a mistake to make, and you can maybe tell me if I'm right or wrong, is an investor will kind of give the founder a set of instructions sometimes.
Yeah.
But those set of instructions I've heard, and tell me if I'm wrong, is they want to see how kind of bendable this guy is, how much he will actually just, how malleable he is, how much he'll just give. And the idea of that, what I've heard, is because if they can see that they can kind of get everything from you and you're just somebody who reports without asking questions, fact checking, why do you need this, and pushing back on the investor, they say this guy's going to get creamed when he's at Series A or Series B if he's like this now. Is that kind of a flawed statement, or do you think there's some kind of there's some truth to that?
Yeah, well, look, it comes down to like who's driving the bus, and VCs are bad bus drivers. Like, if you let them drive the bus, it's not going to go anywhere. Usually, that's what I've seen.
Okay.
What you want to do is just, let them drive the bus to the degree that they need to. If it's reasonable, hey, we need to see this and that. Like, sure, it's in my data room. It's all ready. If you need to see this or reference call or like, customer documents or formation documents or any of that, yep, no problem. If it's too early, and don't like get all depressed about it, but if it is too early, some funds just don't invest until there's like way more traction. That's just their model. So if they're like, hey, let's talk when we get another customer or whatnot, then that's fine. You can say, okay, great. Well, we're going to mark you as a no. And like, let's keep in touch for the Series A, and that's kind of the end of it. Like, that's what I mean by drive the bus. Like, the bus is, we're doing a seed round right now. We've already started closing checks, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And it's a process. Like, this is it. Like, this is, if you want to get in early, this is kind of the time. I'm happy to share anything you need to see, but like, I'm not going to like reach out in 90 days after we close some customer or something like that. Like if they're asking for if they're just waiting to see your business develop more, then it's not a fit. Like, this is we need someone who's a fit where we are today because we're moving. So that's what I mean by drive the bus. Like, you're in charge of the process the whole time. If they want to see things that are reasonable, great. If they want to talk to customers' references, great. But it can't turn into this. If you leave it way open-ended, it's like, well, I need to see this thing, and well, maybe if you showed me this thing, and oh, my investor committee wants to see this and that, and like, it can just drag out and drag out and drag out and drag out.
So if you were to put like a hard stop in there for somebody listening right now, and let's say that they've had a great amount of interviews, they've had a great amount of meetings, they feel very prepared, they feel like they got the story right, but common sales problem across most salespeople is they don't know how to create or inject the right type of urgency, like you're just saying. Without being too pushy then, what is the kind of, do you kind of default to the 2 weeks, like, hey, look, and what is the narrative? Like, hey, I'm closing this out in 2 weeks. Does that have to be like public information? Will they know from speaking to other investors? How do you kind of frame that and give that hard stop?
No, it's not public. That's the beauty of all of this. It's all private. Everything's private. The information is private. The round is private. You're a private company. There's no public disclosures, none of that. Now, again, some founders bend the truth here a little bit. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think you should do that. But it happens a lot. Like, it happens a ton. Where founders are like, they just stretch things. Like, they're like, they'll stretch their revenue numbers, they'll stretch their pipeline numbers, they'll stretch the fact that they already have a lead or something and they don't, or that there's a lot of appetite for this deal and that, hey, it's, now or never. The reality is, just person to person, me as a founder or whoever it is as a founder doesn't win by giving them more than 2 weeks, I find. So, and the 2 weeks even can be shorter. It's like, why don't you let us know by next Wednesday if this is even something you want to have another discussion on? Like, that's more what it is. Like, you're just saying, do you want a second meeting or not? But I'm not just going to be like, let's
talk forever, indefinitely.
Hope it works out sometime later, It's like, we're doing a process. If you want to have a second meeting, let us know by Monday. And that's kind of it. And you can say a couple things, but they shouldn't be lies. But you can say, like, yeah, we're closing. We've already closed a portion of this. We have appetite. We're speaking, like, this is a broad process. Like, I have 20 of these meetings this week. I like you a lot. Like, your profile seems great. Like, you are a person we'd like to pursue. You can be a little gentle with that, but this is it. Like, now or never kind of thing. And they get that. Like, the thing is, VCs like snap into muscle memory at that point. If you leave it loose and squishy, they don't. Then it's just like, they kind of want it, but they don't want to part with the money. And it's like, you're cool, but like, it's got to be like, this is it. You got to make a decision. And that's their whole career. Their whole career is making decisions with limited information. So that, like, it's just easier for everyone. If you're like, hey, we're running a process. If you want a second meeting, like, why don't we like figure it out by Monday? If not, no hard feelings. Really enjoyed the conversation. Talk to you later, kind of thing.
One last question on that before you show the prospecting piece. How much time do you spend researching the investor versus researching the pitch or rehearsing the pitch? Sorry.
Well, I have my own hot take on this, and this is true of sales too. You should do some research, but I'm a way bigger fan of letting them just tell you themselves. Like, it's just more organic. Like, and you hear exactly how they'll give you the keys to the car. Like, they'll give you exactly what they think is important and exactly what they're most proud of and exactly what their firm actually specializes in and how they fit into the overall team. Like, you can try to research that, but it doesn't help a lot. Like, maybe it helps show you've done some homework. You can say, hey, I've heard great things about your firm. I've heard you did this deal. I saw you went to this high school or whatever. Fine. But you don't want to go in there being like, with a whole thing about how you've really analyzed it. Like, let them tell you, because it gets them comfortable talking. They'll tell you exactly where their priorities are, and it's just more natural and organic. So that's my recommendation there. I would do a little bit of research, sure, but you don't need to think that you need to like be able to parrot their whole life back to them. It doesn't add that much value.
All right. Let me do this, Andrew. I'm going to take a bathroom break for one minute, go ahead. And then we'll get the spread prospect.
Go.
All right,
go.
All right.
Okay.
Let's rock and roll. All right. So next piece, I think. So this is where we're going to show the prospecting piece now, right?
Yeah.
The actual the real juice.
Setting the table.
This is what I think is for me. This is what I honestly think is. This is the most interesting part for me, because this is where the actual real work takes place. Like, the actual no's on it too, I feel are the biggest win for me to see, because the amount of rejection, like, people always look at it from two sides, right? You'd say, I could do this and this is all great, but they fail to realize, like, mate, yes, you will get to this place, but are you prepared for the amount of rejection that it takes to get there? Like, are you going to be, like, after 10, are you going to bitch and moan? What are you going to do after 20? You did 170, so...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's going to be a huge thing. So I thought this was really cool and really excited to share this with my investor's journey on and what he's kind of teaching me on my next path. So how long did this take you then, Andrew, from day one to first check, received? What would you say was the timeline across all of those rejections and attempts?
Well, we got some checks early, which was great. But like, this actual process before we started to get meaningful traction was like 60 days, 90 days. It was like two months maybe in there. It was tough. And what you're really supposed to try to do is condense all your meetings into a very short period of time, which we did. But we just got a lot of no's. Like we got a lot of no's. It took us a while. And then we had this kind of second wave of introductions and sort of traction that came in. And then we started getting real reception, and we got a lead. And then when we got the lead, it was easy to fill the rest, which is kind of typical, just how it works. So
how, just before we get into that, number one, I would like to explain to people, how does that work, that lead investor? So it's kind of self-explanatory, but before that, let's just rewind quickly. Yeah. What channel produced the most fruitful results? Was it cold calling, cold email, DMing? What worked for you?
Yeah. I'll step into the process here, because that was a really big thing. Okay, so what we did, again, we were trying to engineer for a lot of meetings in a short period of time, which is important because you want some competition. Like you want to just kind of show that you're serious, and like VCs don't do well if they have an infinite timeline. I think I said that. So what you want to do is just say, hey, this is happening now, and like if you want in, great. If not, no problem. But we're out there. So what we did is, I can share my screen. And again, there's probably a cleaner with AI that you could do this in a lot more slick way. But again, it's a human thing. So let me show you what I did.
Is this, while you're putting that up, Andrew, is there a kind of thing that you should do where you make the decision? So me and you have actually had that conversation. I was in a cash crunch at the end of December, and you said, mate, you just got to find the money, make it happen. And it was a situation of just like, the first conversation, when do you make the decision to say, I'm going to start fundraising now, and then I'm going to start fundraising 3 weeks out, and I expect to complete my fundraising journey in, should you give a kind of default 6 months, and I want my first check in this month? Do you kind of have a process around how one should think about it like that, how they should plan forward?
Yeah. It's tough to know exactly, like the timing is never really right. It's never perfect. So at a certain point, maybe you have only so much runway left, or maybe it's really more about the market. Like maybe the market's really just taken off, and if you don't move quickly, you're going to miss the opportunity. For any of these giant venture opportunities, there's going to be competition. So usually it's more about urgency amongst your cohort. So for us, we were like, hey, like we're starting to see some copycats. We need to turbocharge this, or we're going to miss the window. When we made that decision, we said, okay, let's take 3 weeks. Let's get all our ducks in a row. Let's get our presentation together, get our data room together, get everything ready. And then what we tried to do, what we did do is, it's like anything, we put together a list of prospects and found out how to get in touch with them. What we did is...
But where did you get your list? Sorry, before that, Andrew, because that's an important piece. Right now, getting data is probably you've got so many searches, you've got Apollo, you've got ZoomInfo, you've got LinkedIn. What was your data source of choice? What do you like? Where would you, and if you can't say that because it's outdated, where would you recommend people go now to acquire, invest? You go to lists on fucking LinkedIn. It's really messy, bro. So like, and data is so outdated. So what are you recommending people start with their data source to? How do you even find them?
Well, what we did is we went introductions only, pretty much. We didn't do anything cold. Now, we had a bit of an advantage because both my co-founder and I had been in the Silicon Valley for a while. I had been an exited founder, although it was quite a while before. And just a lot of my friends were in the market. Like they were either VCs or founders, or they knew VCs, or they were advisors or whatever. So this is the thing that we did that I think is universal and is totally like the best way to do it. Let me share my screen and I'll kind of walk you through the journey.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to share this template. Again, I think AI can probably do a better job now, but I just want to walk through the components here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So what we did is we made this list of investors. I just anonymized Billy Billionaire, what a guy. But we had 239 of them, 238. So what we did, there were a couple lists. Like there's Signal Fire, NFX. There's a couple of others. We used AngelList a little bit. But we built this long list of potential investors, and we were really broad with this. Like we didn't check if they had competitive things. We didn't do anything. It was people that we knew or second degree knew we could get access to, or we just thought that they were like the perfect type of person, even if we didn't know them.
Pre-seed? Did you categorize by pre-seed,
Yeah.
seed? Okay.
Yeah. We looked for. I mean, we did some broad filtering, like do they invest early? Do they invest in seed? Do they like sales tech? But even then, we didn't go up that deep into like, hey, could they have a competitor or could they be this or that? Even some of them were Series A only, and that's fine. Like you can still talk to them. So we had this huge list of 230 something. Maybe about a third of them were folks that we knew, and then 2/3 were folks that we didn't know. What I did is, and this part was really, really manual, and I hope AI can help here. I don't know, but because of the human nature of it, it kind of had to be a little bit manual. So for each one of them, I went and put their LinkedIn here. Now that you can probably get an intern or you can get LinkedIn to do or whatever. But what we did, okay, so if you go into Nick, I don't know if this is still hyperlinked, but I'll pull up LinkedIn here and we can go to his profile. If we were to go to the one example I put in here, Nick Haas. Shout out Nick. He was one of our investors, founder of MaintainX, billion-dollar rocket ship unicorn, badass company, cool dude. Now, everyone knows this part, this like 56 mutual connections. So for every one of those target people, we put in their LinkedIn, we linked to their LinkedIn profile, and then we looked at mutual connections. Now, this shows who I know in common, like who do I know in common, who are my mutual connections that could potentially introduce me to Nick. Now, Nick I already knew, so this is an easy example, but there's like 50 or 60 of them. And what you have to do is go through them, and many of these you might not know that well, like my LinkedIn is pretty broad, but there's probably one or maybe two or even sometimes more where they know you so well, like you hang out with them, you could give them a casual phone call and say, hey, what's going on? And so what I would do is I would go through, and this part kind of had to be manual because no intern or AI tool is really going to know of this list who you're really close with. So in this one, okay, Noel is one of my best friend's wives. Amir I've worked with for years and years. So then what I would do is I'd go back to this sheet and I would say founder connection. So and then I would just type it in. I'd say, okay, who's my connector? Who's my most warm connection to Nick? And I would fill this in. And this part took a long time, and it had to be done by the founder. Like, it kind of has to be done by the CEO because it's so touchy-feely. So I would sit there for a couple days or a weekend or whatever, and I would go and say, all right, for all of these people, I have a mutual connection that I really trust who I can just casually hit up. So I filled all that. Now, the other thing I did is I put in tiers, and this is kind of subjective, but what we tried to do is do tier 3s first, and then tier 2s, and then tier 1s. And this is really, just because you get better and better as you go. So your tier 1s are like your famous, Excel, Sequoia, all these like big funds. Tier 2s are like the prominent funds, but maybe they're not quite as famous, but they're real serious like VCs. And then tier 3 are still real serious career VCs, but they're maybe newer and they're just not as well known, and they're like really hungry for deal flow. And then there was kind of the tier 4-ish, which was our connectors. So the connectors were often investors themselves. And so what we did is, instead of just jumping straight into pitching, I don't think anyone should do that. I think what you should try to do is go through all of these mutuals that you have with every one of these people. And what you'll find is that, I'll show you here, what we ended up realizing is that, and I'll really kind of make this pop, what we realized was that most of the connectors, or most of the mutual people who could make really good connections, it narrowed down to maybe, a dozen people. And so what I did, and again, this was manual. I think AI could do this faster, but what I did is I said, okay, this name keeps coming up. Like I keep seeing Haney, or I keep seeing Blake. Like Blake is like a constant connector. He seems to know half of this list. Adam seems to know half of this list. CJ and Pat, they seem to know half of this list. Right.
And where did you get these ones from? This is from that column.
Well, this is from your connectors. Yeah. So basically all you're doing is you're taking your connector column here. So right now, like this spreadsheet is basically oriented around the investor. So each investor gets a row. What you're doing is saying, okay, well, I keep noticing that the same couple connectors show up that I really trust, and I could call them for a casual coffee, and they seem to know like 5 or 10 of these folks each. So that's what that tab was. So, what I did was I flipped it and I said, all right, why don't I build a tab where the connectors are the star of the show? And for each connector, who of my targets are they connected with? So you can see here, for Haney, Haney he kept showing up. So he knew Hunter, he knew Joseph, he knew Sar, he knew Alexis, he knew Felix. I didn't really know any of these investors, but I knew that Haney, who I'm a buddy with, knew them. Now, here's the super counterintuitive thing. A lot of founders will just immediately go and call their buddy and say, hey, dude, we're pals. Introduce me to so-and-so, please. That is fucking rude and shitty, and it doesn't work, and it puts them in a really bad spot. Because what you're asking is you're asking this person, and even if they're a friend of yours, you're asking them to burn their social capital on something that they don't even really know about. So think about that. So even if they're your friend, like let's say one of your friends was really good pals with Taylor Swift, and you were to be like, hey, I want to see Taylor. I want to meet her. Connect me with Taylor. Do you not realize that they probably get a million little idiots ask them for that all the fucking time? And no, they're not going to do it, because if they did it, they would lose their friendship with Taylor Swift. And so they're like, maybe they'll do it. Like if they really like you, they'll do it. But it's just a shitty ask. Like it's a really rude and like inconsiderate thing to do. And you might get a couple of yeses, but like even the intro will be like, hey, I got a buddy, might want to meet you. I don't know what they're doing. Da, da, da. You'd be surprised at how even your good friend, they're not going to like damage their career for you. And that's actually shitty for you to ask them to do that.
Not.
You're not going to, you shouldn't ask them. Like you shouldn't presume. So I'm really like, I get really passionate about this because people do it to me now too. They're like, hey, intro me to so-and-so, intro me to so-and-so. I'm like, dude, I like you, but that's like my career like connection. And I like, I got to know what's going on. So anyway, where I'm going with all this is that this list of connectors, here's the hack. Everybody loves being asked to do a practice pitch. It's like a hack. So, and they're flattered. Like they're flattered, they're curious, they would love to do it. They're like, sure. And it's easy. They don't have to prep for it. There's no ask at all. They get to be this powerful guru guy who like gives you some feedback, and they're in the position of power, and they're like, great. So it's a very, very, very easy thing to do, and it's extremely helpful. So what we did is we said, hey, for every one of these frequent connectors that kept coming up again and again and again, let's do a practice pitch with them. And the practice pitch was not like a laboratory session where we're like, hey, does this slide go here? Does this slide go? Like, it wasn't that. It was like, it was a real fucking pitch. Like, it was an actual pitch, and it had real gravity, because if they walked away genuinely thinking that it was a great opportunity, it would be their honor to introduce you to these VIPs, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if not, they'll give you some advice and they'll wish you the best, and they might make some intros, but like, that's fine. You're still learning something. But if you really, really nail it, and they actually in their bones believe that it's an awesome opportunity, they'll suggest it, they'll prompt it. They'll be like, hey, I want to look cool to my VIPs, and I want to be the smart, cool dude who has really cool opportunities and deal flow. It makes me look better to introduce you than to not introduce you. Like that's what you're architecting for. So that's what we did. So we did practice pitches with all these people, and the crazy thing is, first couple we sucked. We got some good feedback, but then two or three in, it was incredible. Like they were like, oh, this is amazing. I see it. You should meet so-and-so and so-and-so. Like we didn't have to ask. And even more to the point, some of them put in money right away, and we gave them a better deal. So we were like, yeah, we'll take advisory checks for, $10K, $25K. Most of these folks are just regular people, but they're in the flow of deals anyways. And so we'd give them a slightly lower valuation, and we'd say, sure, we'll do like an $8 million cap or a $10 million cap, and we're going to go out and ask for a 15. So they get a little bit of a markup. I mean, for $10,000, it's not going to make a difference at all. And we did that, and it was amazing, because once we started getting good, every one of our practice pitches turned into a genuine warm intro, even with an investor. So that was like a huge, huge unlock for us. So I would take that seriously, write it down. Like I would strongly suggest that everyone does that. And then it was kind of procedural from there. Like from that point on, everything was pretty clean. It was like, we got 8 or 10 practice pitches done. Most of them either put in a small check or readily, voluntarily gave us intros. Even people that weren't on this list, it was like amazing. And on the list, they'd say, oh, I don't actually know these people, but like there's 2 other people that I love, and they would love this, and they would send us to them. So I think
what would be cool too, sorry, jump in on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would be to have I'm sure you had like some sort of agenda for the calls, and like you've obviously shared the presentation, but maybe
Right.
we can have a downloadable copy of the format that you've done with the appendix, but then also maybe what should a founder say on that first call? Like, how should they structure that agenda? And after that call, they could be and how to create that urgency. I think after that call, they could probably be walking away with probably their most successful process moving forward. So after that, when you've got all there, did we cover the first check? What your first check was?
Well, yeah. Well, the first big one we haven't gotten to yet, but okay. The couple things we did say here though is that some of the advisors put in small. Oh, you're gonna want to cut that. Your audio went haywire.
I'm trying to get the charger. Go on.
So what we did is, yeah, we got a couple of small advisors to put in some checks. Hopefully, if you're actually meaningfully fundraising, you've at least got a little bit of like some small investors in there, some advisors in there, someone has. There's a really big psychological shift when you actually meaningfully start closing checks. And so we actually were a little hesitant at first when our advisors wanted to do it. I was like, do we actually close from these folks? Like they're not actually VCs, but we did, and the psychological difference is huge. Even if you just close 10K, like 15K, it doesn't matter. The minute you start receiving wires, like the game is now like it's game on, like it's real. Like the psychology shifts completely. And ultimately, when we went on and did the real like VC pitches, even starting with tier 3s and then tier 2s and tier 1s, it was just a whole different ballgame. It was like, hey, we've already started closing checks, like the round is open, like this is it. Whereas if you're just like, well, we'd like to maybe start closing. We haven't had anyone say yes yet. Even if you're not saying that, if that's your mindset, it is not like it's not helping you. So
Yeah.
even just close some little ones. You don't have to disclose the numbers, but like, yes, we've already taken some funding. Like we've just started this round and we already got a check yesterday. Like we're cooking. So, and even if you don't close advisors, hopefully you had something before. Like basically, when investors will ask you, like, tell me about your round, I'm always just an advocate of saying, we're raising this much in seed total, and that should include any safe notes that you've gotten so far. So, like we'd already raised maybe 300K from 6 months before, but we just said that's part of our seed round. It's kind of a rolling close. With safe notes, it's very easy, and it's kind of understood that you're just closing as you go, and safe notes are all individual and independent anyways. Like they're not dependent on other people. So we were just like, yeah, we've already started closing. We've got the earliest couple checks already done. We just closed one yesterday, blah, blah, blah. Like the psychology, the shift there is real.
How do you one quick one on that, what I've always heard is, how do you kind of differentiate / categorize your angel investors from your institutional investors, and maybe a prioritization on, do you go for angels first because can they write a check faster? Do you go to VCs, and is the VC process something that you really should plan for a longer term? How do you kind of go around that piece?
Yeah, I mean, the psychology of an angel and a VC isn't too different. I guess they still just want to get in on something that can grow. They want to get in with someone they can trust. They want to get in on something where the market opportunity is massive. I don't think there's a huge difference. Like those first couple meetings are the same either way.
Okay.
Maybe the second couple, like the diligence might be a little more intense, or like funds have a bit more restriction. They have some more restrictions. Like maybe they can't do competitors. They can't get into, I don't know, like they need 10% of a deal or something. Like angels are just a little bit more untethered, but the psychology I think is the same.
Give me 1 second. I just got Amazon at the door.
Good.
Back. All right. And then, so the separation from the angel and the VC, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter. Then, right? You don't think it really matters too much. And planning around it, what do you think? Planning around like that for the approach on, like, knowing you're going to speak to an institutional investor, so you can remove any bias or any. I was under the impression it could happen very fast. What should somebody give themselves if they're planning to raise?
Yeah.
You guys should expect X, and X being what kind of time frame would you say?
Yeah, I mean, if you're running a clean process, again, you're going to get beat up a lot in the first month or two, but I would say, 3 months of really intense hustle, I think you should be able to get a couple $1 million in today's climate if your story's straight. You need a little bit of traction. Like the ingredients all need to be there. But if you've got the good story, you got the pitch down, you got a decent network, you have some traction. Like the traction just validates that you're not full of shit. It's like the traction just makes it all like this isn't a PowerPoint laboratory exercise. Like it's a business. So you need a little bit of paid traction. But the more important thing than the dollars is the repeatability. So if it's, you called your rich uncle and he put in a few bucks, that's not really that helpful. But if you actually meaningfully closed a stranger and they're paying real money out of their budget and they had to go to their boss and like there's 500 other companies that are identical, that is like that's the traction that you want. So if you have all that, 2-3 months, give or take. Sometimes it happens really quickly. Sometimes it takes a few months more. But if you're really like diligent on it, that should be kind of what you're looking at.
And what do you think about the guys who are I hear this a lot. You've got some people who are like, they're not even the brightest founders, but they've got crazy networks and they can raise a check just like that. They might have a good history. They can raise a check just like that. And then you have these brilliant people, and these brilliant people are going through months and months and months and they can't get a check written. What do you think is like the main differentiator for those two people? Do you think it is network? Is it credibility? What kind of do you think separates them? One being really, really good. The company's amazing. It's got traction versus the other guy who goes and is just like, checks cut. Simple. What do you think separates both of them?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of an X factor there. So you see, we've heard this story a bunch. Yeah, you're right. There's some folks that don't seem that impressive, but they can raise right away. And there's some folks that seem brilliant and smart, and they really struggle. I'm in a unique position, and I've seen like 100 plus of these. What I've observed is there's like a little bit of like a killer X factor personality kind of spark that goes a really long way, and investors really latch onto that and dig it. It's kind of some combination of insanity and charisma and ambition and, business acumen. If you can like get that lightning in a bottle, you can usually do pretty well. Now, the network counts for a lot. Like Silicon Valley is an interesting place. It claims to be all meritocratic, like it's just a meritocracy, and if you're good, you rise to the top. There's a lot of billionaires' kids here, and there's a lot of like went to the right school and they're like classmates with everyone who matters. There's a lot of that, a lot, and it's really depressing if you're coming in as an outsider because like you're holding yourself to this standard that's kind of impossible to meet if you're an outsider. So bear that in mind, right? Like what you're trying to do is you can synthesize a lot of that, but you're not going to have the reach, and the reach matters. So it may be worthwhile to take a couple extra months and just have a bunch of little chit chat meetings with a bunch of people, like build your connector base. What I realized when I was doing my connector mapping was that most of the connectors were just like when I first moved here, I just went and got coffees with everyone, and I went to every little meetup, and I went to all these little dinky startup founder pitch sessions and all that stuff. And a lot of them were a waste of time, but I just built some friends. Like I had some friends that I would get coffee, I would get check-ins with, and most of the connectors turned out to be those people. The connectors typically were the extrovert, easy to meet, very curious, interested people that just like will say yes to a quick meeting. And Silicon Valley is interesting because there's a lot of everyone's pretty accessible. So you can slowly build, well, not even slow, you can probably pretty quickly build a good web of those connectors and kind of hack your way in. It's not the same as if you went to Stanford Business School or if your dad was some CEO somewhere. But those folks have like a crazy leg up, and it's real. Like it's a real leg up. But some of the leg up that they have is like a soft advantage. They also just have spent their whole lives hearing this stuff like at the breakfast table with their dad. Like they just know how an aggressive CEO thinks and talks, and they can like mimic that, right? Or if they went to one of these big business schools here, like they just spent years being immersed in like the language and the culture, and they got to know all these. Like, sure, getting to know people is one thing, but even just they're genuinely through osmosis well qualified because they've just been surrounded by this their entire lives. So, but really that spark is everything. So, I've seen brilliant people, very qualified, even the ones that went to the good schools and all that. If they're a little reserved and like a little unsure, it's like, hey, I hope this works. Maybe if we're lucky, this might turn out this way. And if their goals are like modest, that'll kill it completely. So, and I coach a lot of Canadians. I'm from Canada. I'm from a small, modest town and family in Canada, and like my dad was a tradesman, and like it's a whole different thing out there. Like you don't say like, oh, we're working on this $1 billion opportunity. It's like, oh, we're like chugging away and we're laying one brick at a time, and maybe it'll work, maybe not. We're just gonna get there, and like
very modest.
You got to kind of throw that away, huh?
It's very humble and modest.
Very humble and modest, yeah. So my background is German, and I grew up in this small town in Canada, and like both of those cultures despise the flash and arrogance and like ambition. Even ambition is like a little like crass. So I had to unlearn a lot of that, because if you're going to play in the NFL, they know that a lot of it's a stretch, but they're like, could it maybe happen? Like that's what they want. So you got to just live in that world of like, could it maybe happen? Like if everything goes right, boom, like our traction, everything, market's huge, we're crazy, we're gonna fucking do it. Like they want to see that a little bit. I use the example of what's his name, Alex Karp. Like Alex Karp, I'm a huge fan of him. He's the CEO of Palantir. Go watch some of his videos. Like he's fucking nuts. Like he's great. Like he says off the cuff stuff. He's like just smart and right and like deep, but he's like, nope, that's wrong. Like this is that. Like da da da. Like I think he's a great example of like that kind of thing. Pattern interrupts, which is really important. Like everyone's like, whoa, like put your phone down. Like this guy's fucking wild. But then the things he says are true and correct and smart and like and like he doesn't like say anything inappropriate really. He's just like this kind of like twitchy, zany, like very smart dude. And like I really like his demeanor as an example. It's not natural for a lot of people, so do what's natural to you, but like lean into that like, oh, like that's wrong, this is right, this is what we're doing, out of my way, like this is my stance, like da 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 da, right? So I see that like that, distill that little spark down, and like that's what I think makes a really great fundraising CEO.
I want to ask you this. So I hear this all the time, and it is, how do you handle the question, what's your moat, without sounding defensive? And how really important is this moat thing? Because like the way I look at it, like really, all right, so I'm a year ahead of this person. Let's just say they're not catching up with me. My brain works this way, like whatever. You can come up with whatever the kind of bullshit you want. But there's so much alikeness that is moat a really like how much of an impact or how important is moat in today's world, in today's kind of environment for business?
The moat thing is an interesting one, especially today, because software can be built well and cheap and fast. And I'm really like, I'm even not entirely sure. Like VCs are sweating right now because they don't have any fucking clue. Like they're like, they don't know. What does the future look like? It's starting to get a little more clear now. And I've just heard from people that like, okay, we kind of get it. Inference models, frontier LLMs, agents, index, like context, like they kind of get it all now. So like it's getting a little more clear. But for the last 2 years, it's been really tough, even for the VCs. Nobody knows. So as far as moat goes, in today's climate, I would lean away from trying to talk about this fancy whiz-bang Star Trek cool interface tech thing, because they're all just going to be like, yeah, some guy smarter than you can vibe code it, and they can do it in a week, and like just like give me a break. So people are going a little deeper. It's like, all right, what insight do you have about the future world, which we don't even really know yet? But like, why do you think your thing will be vital in that world? And it's tough because nobody really knows. So it's like educated guesswork. All right, if this starts to really blow up, you're really going to need this infrastructure here, or you're really going to need this thing here. It really is not so much about some great user experience and like great slick graphs and charts and UI and like, you can just whip, like that stuff's free now. And even if you think you have some magical IP around like weightings of like, I don't know, weightings of models or like some like algorithms or something, okay, but like that's not real. Like anyone can kind of figure that out. So I actually don't have a clear answer to the moat question. I'm learning it as we go, but like I'm seeing moats around, like traction is the biggest moat. If you can get dollars, that's amazing. And the bar is going up. So you need real dollars. Like you need a couple big deals or like a good broad range of like smaller deals just to prove that even if your thing doesn't have a moat, you can motherfucking sell. Like people want it, you can market it, people will sign a contract committing to pay you. And that's like that's real. It's gotten a lot more important now. Like margins are getting more important now, like just running a sensible business, like this whole thing of torch money until you figure it out doesn't really work anymore. I think there is a little bit of a sort of moat-ish. Like some folks think that like if you can like even proprietary data, like data's a bit of a moat, but it's a medium-term moat. Like eventually everyone will have great data too. So behavioral data, like real-time data, like how is a company interacting in the moment? Like that's kind of interesting. Like there's some stuff that you would snowball over time. Where like that could start to look like a moat. I don't know, but it's tricky. The moat question is tricky.
I think that's a good way then to lead to the next question, which is, what do you do when you don't know the answer and you're speaking to an investor? And you don't want to lie, right? You don't want to lie, right? So I think one thing that you've always taught me very well is in any kind of situation, but even just let's just say blowing up your numbers a little. I've seen it myself. I've seen firms, and I heard the call, like, because I had the Fireflies transcripts, and I would sit on a call and be like, let me try to learn from some of these investor meetings, and seeing them like, whoa, that is so not true, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do when you don't know the answer, or again, just let's use that. You don't know the answer. What do you say to the investor? I don't know. Do you make yourself look stupid if you don't know something about your own business? Do you say, can I come back to you on it? Is that a killer of the deal? What's your kind of suggestion if that comes up in a call?
Well, you shouldn't get blindsided. Like once you've done enough of these, you'll know what the questions are. You should have some kind of an answer, even if it's directional. And say, yeah, we're actively researching that too, or like, hey, we're figuring like this is kind of new. Like it's okay. Today's world is so foggy and VCs too, they don't know either. So like it's okay to say, hey, like, man, the whole world's figuring that out. Like we're working on it. Like we think this, we have observed this.
Yeah.
Like let's go see. Like we're working on that. Like you can kind of have that a little, especially today. If it's true that is like a frontier thing that you're figuring out.
And I think last question,
yeah.
How do you know when to push, and then how do you know when to walk?
Well, with fundraising, you can't really push much. You can only walk, but you can frame it so that like I need to know this, or we're gonna like move on. But you can't push. You can't they can always just not do it. They can even sign and not wire. Like they can get cold feet. People get cold feet all the time. So like you can't force a wire to happen. So like you can only make it that they're going to be stupid and regret it for the rest of their lives. Sorry, not stupid. You can only just make it a clear thing that they're going to regret it and it's a smart move, and that there's measured risk. There's obviously risk, but like it's in line with what they're trying to do anyways as investors, and like it's the opportunity's going away soon. Like that's all you got.
All right.
Yeah.
Last question of the podcast.
Well, I didn't go through the. Sorry. Just
all right.
I didn't actually finish the operational part.
All right, so go on then. Yeah, then I want to see that. That's what.
Yeah,
go on then. Let's go to that. Let's go to that.
Well, I'll just highlight the couple of counterintuitive things because I think they're really valuable. So I think I'd gotten to the point where I showed you like get the practice pitches done, use those to tee up all your intros. I think that's pretty straightforward. Everyone gets that. But the one thing, I'll just talk really quickly about the psychological gauntlet, and I'll use our experience as an example here. So I've anonymized this obviously, but I just want to go through some numbers. So we had, 223 that we really tried to meet. And so of that, we were only able to get intro requests to 198, still a big number. even there, only, about 100 of them said no. They didn't even want to make the introduction or like want to go further. And then there was 105 that we got introduced to. We requested the meeting. And then even from there, a lot of them just said no. They were like, hey, nope, don't want to meet you. There was 77 that said, yes, we'll schedule a meeting with you. And then we pitched them. And even here, just look at this. Like, we got no's, rejected. Like, it was just no. So this is how many? 31. So that's 31 rejections. So this is over the course of maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks, maybe a month. This was really hard. Like, this was miserable. And I think it's important to talk about that. Like, this is really intelligent, smart people who've been in Silicon Valley for a long time, and they're telling you that your life's work that you gambled and bet the farm on, and you told your whole family about, and you went and set up this thing, and you probably already raised a little bit, and you have co-founders, and da-da-da-da. All these smart investors are telling you that it's not worth their time or money. So, I want people to be prepared for that. It's really tough. And talking about it doesn't do it justice. When you're in it, it's fucking horrible because you're just wondering, what the hell am I doing with my life? So from then, the thing that we did is maybe about halfway through this, and this is probably the most powerful counterintuitive thing that really was an unlock for us, is maybe about halfway through, I was kind of like, okay, to hell with it. I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to call and ask for a debrief call with these people. Now, psychologically speaking, that would almost never cross your mind because people, I don't know if you really think about it, most people protect their ego a lot, and it's subconscious, so you don't even know you're doing it. But like if you get dumped or rejected or like whatever, you kind of just put it in a corner. You don't think about it much. Move on with your life because it hurts. It sucks. Mm-hmm. And when you get rejected by an investor, it's like, okay, well, screw you. I don't want to talk to you anymore either. And then you just forget about them. But I kind of bit the bullet and started saying, hey, thanks for taking the call. If you have 10 minutes, like it wasn't a big thing. I was like, can I call your cell phone at some point tomorrow afternoon and just have 5-10 minutes and just kind of chat about how the discussion went internally? And what I realized was every single one of them was so excited to do that because they actually liked you. Like they were rooting for you. They wouldn't have taken the meeting otherwise. They could have said no. So they liked you. They liked the meeting. They liked something about it, made it worth it to show their boss or their peers, their partners. Like there was an internal discussion. And probably whoever set up the meeting was like rooting for you somehow. And what you started, and when you ask for the debrief, they love it because it's like, okay, I get to actually talk about that. Like I get to actually give a little bit of insight and sort of, like I can vent all this internal work that I actually did get to do. So they always are really receptive. They would schedule it right away. We'd have this really comfortable discussion. And I wouldn't try to turn them around. It was just, and what was amazing about it too, okay, a couple things. Number one, most of the reasons for the no's was not anything that I should beat myself up about. Now, they were being polite, obviously, so maybe read between the lines, like they still didn't like it enough to invest. But a lot of times the fund was almost out of money or it had a competitive play or they just couldn't get enough people to meet at once and they were busy on 10 other deals or whatever. A lot of that's just polite, but like there were a bunch of them where I didn't need to go and feel so depressed. Like it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't a fit. The most common example was like they were in the midst of raising their next fund and like, it was more just like a fact-finding meeting and there was a lot of that. But then the other thing is you have to realize these investors have 10 of these meetings a day or maybe 5 of these meetings a day for a fucking decade. Like this is their career. Their career is taking first meetings with founders like you and saying no to pretty much all of them. So if you actually take the time to chat with them afterwards, they remember you as a real human being for the rest of their lives. Like you're now in a whole different bucket. Because when you're just doing that first pitch with them, you're kind of like another face. You're another face on the bus. Yeah, you're another face on the subway train. Like if a bartender served you a gin and tonic, like they're not going to remember you ever again. But like once you take the time to do that, they will remember you. And that was one thing. The other really crazy thing was, like, they root for you, and they'll make intros that are great. Like, that's the thing that people say, don't take intros from someone who rejected you. That's nonsense. We got some of our best intros ever out of the no's, including people that wired us money later. So, some of the no's said, oh, my God, like, I have 2 friends who love this space. They really want to meet you. Go meet them. Or a customer like, hey, we've got one of our portfolio companies that wants to try it. Go talk to them. And like the no's for us were a super turbocharged thing, and it just made the whole thing better. And I keep in touch with a lot of like those no's are now people that I can talk to and email, and they know who I am. So that's that. And then the only other thing, just to close out the story here, is once we started getting yeses, again, it was like wave after wave of no's, and then we got some secondary introductions, and then one of them came in heavy and put in $1.5 million, which was most of our round. At that point, we went to everyone and said, hey, we only have $700K of space left. And it was like a feeding frenzy. Like the valuation went up. We closed the last $700K at like 40% higher of a valuation than what the lead came in at.
So how does that happen, Andrew? So how does a valuation of a company increase is it just based on the amount of investment you receive? Is there any correlation between the amount of investment you receive versus the traction in the company and both of them together? Is it both of them together? How does that kind of work?
Yeah. The word valuation is kind of misleading because it's the same company. Like you closed money within a month. 2 checks came in within a month of each other. One got better terms. The other one got worse terms. It means that one got in at a lower valuation, so the price per share was lower, and one got in at a higher valuation, the price per share was higher. But they're safe notes, which means they're convertible. So it's not like an actual... Really, you're just giving them slightly better terms for their money. I guess thinking of it as, it's not that it's a more valuable company. The thing is, the market dynamics have changed. It's like how like a stock price can go up and down just based on some news. So, when they first met you, the news was not that hot. It was like, hey, they haven't done much, and they don't seem to have their story very crisp, and like no one else is in the deal. The stock price is down here. Well, all of a sudden, people want to buy their stock. It doesn't matter that the company is the exact same company. The stock price is going up. So they have to just pay in at a higher price. Now, with Safe Notes, and this is amazing, like when Safe Notes came out, it changed the game completely. It used to be that you had to syndicate and get everyone to agree on some terms. So you'd have these like 10 or 15 investors, and like the lead would set the terms, and there'd be some bickering and all this stuff. With Safe Notes, it's completely private and unilateral. So your Safe Note is private. It's you and the person. You can set whatever terms you want. You can set different terms with someone the same day. Doesn't matter. And you're under no obligation. Yeah.
God, so explain a safe note, because I didn't know that a safe note was actually a convertible note. They're the same thing. Is that right? So I had no idea. So can you explain safe note? We'll put it in appendix 2 at the bottom of the description. Yeah. But what is a safe note for those that don't know it? Why should somebody use a safe note over another vehicle? Is it better than debt? And why was it first introduced into Silicon Valley as the best format outside of what you just said, which is not having to have everybody aligned to one kind of term?
Yeah, it was a huge thing. It came out maybe 8 years ago or something. Y Combinator piloted it, and what a safe note is, it stands for it's like future equity. The FE. It's like standard. Something
agreement for future equity. I think it is
standard agreement for future equity. So it's future equity. So all they're doing is they're sending you cash. They actually don't have debt.
Any valuation.
They don't have debt, and they don't have you don't owe them the money back, and they don't have equities. They don't have shares. But when you do what's called a priced round, which is like a big boy round, it's like a Series A where like serious people, they set up your board, they buy shares for a price. When that happens, the safe note converts into real shares. So that's what a safe note is. It's like, and it was an evolution, because for a while people would use these like way overcomplicated things like convertible debt, or they would do priced rounds even for tiny companies. Like those are very lawyer intensive things. So a safe note's meant to be just a quick and dirty, standardized. If the company doesn't work, we write it off. If the company is successful, we get shares. End of story. So it's not meant, like safe notes are not meant for a company that's going to end up being medium sized. They're only really for a company that could be big, because it's pretty much worthless unless you are going to be big. So, and so that's the psychology that you're playing in. It's like these are poker chips for a potential unicorn, and everything else is a write-off. So that's what a safe is. But the nice thing is, you don't need to syndicate. Like a safe is just an individual thing. So I could take a safe from you. I could take a safe from someone else. I could take a safe from someone else. As long as you just change, like there's only a few things you can change. So you just change a few things, and that's it. And it's nobody's business what your other safes are. People can ask, you're allowed, you can tell them, you can choose not to. it's not their business. Like, this is the safe that
What-
I'm offering you. Like, if you're my investor, I'm offering you this term. Take it or leave it. Yes or no.
What are the ranges of safes that you recommend people look at? Is there a cap? Is there a floor? Is there a ceiling? What would you give a range of on a range of safe notes for people looking at cutting those?
Yeah, I mean, the way they work is there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but the thing that is most standard, like 80, 90% of the time, is they have what's called a post-money cap. So the no discount post-money cap. So you can set them up so that you convert into the priced round shares with a discount. So it's basically like you get a slightly better price because you were in early. Or what's more standard now and pretty much ubiquitous is, just for easy math, is you say, when we convert, you'll convert into the same price as everyone if it's lower than the cap. But if it's higher than the cap, you're locked in at that price, and the price doesn't get any worse, even if the valuation goes way up. So it's basically a way to guarantee a percentage. So if I were to invest like $1 million and the post-money cap was 10 million, that means that if they were to go raise at anything above 10 million, like 20, 30, 50, 100, doesn't matter, you're going to get 10% of the shares because your million buys you $1 million all the way up to 10 million, and that's a cap on the valuation that you would ever receive. So it's a benefit. So like, you're never going to get a price higher than 10 million. And remember, as an investor, you want a low price. So it's a cap, like that's the highest price that you would ever get exposed to. So that's how it works. So you'd say, hey, I'm raising on a $10 million post-money cap, or a $20 million post-money cap, or 30, and whatever your dollars are, it uses that cap to convert into a fraction, and that fraction determines how many shares you get. So that's the
What a
math.
boatload. Yeah, no, I get it. Wow, I think that's a masterclass right there. What else do we have to cover?
Well, that's about it. So, I mean, you're asking. So with each of these folks, they got a safe note with a cap. The lead got a certain cap. And then after that, everyone else saw it as a way hotter, sexier thing because it was funded now. So they got a higher cap. So their terms were slightly worse, but that was because they waited. It also is fair because it was way safer at that point. Like, it had millions in the bank. So like, their terms are just not as good because they didn't take the early risk. And that's actually a really smart thing too. So you can have, with safe notes, again, you can say, hey, my first $500,000 is going to be at a $10 million. And we did this. Our first $500K is at a $10 million cap. Our next million is going to be at a 15. And then like anything above that's at a 20. And people do this all the time. And now the market's so hot that the standards are even higher. Like, people are raising at a 20 and a 25 and a 30 or whatever. But they're saying that, like, yeah, if you want to actually take a bet early when we don't have a lot of cash in the bank, it's more risky. So I'll give you a lower price. Like, I'll give you a better deal. And that's completely fair. It's like a rolling close, you know, and we gave our advisors an even lower cap. Our advisors got like 8 million or 6 million. So our advisors came in for even lower, and they got a great deal. Now, it was $10,000 or $25,000. Like, it was not a lot of money, so it didn't make a huge difference to us dilution-wise. But you're totally allowed to do that. So that's what I meant. So when we finally got our lead, then everyone else was a lot easier, and there was even pressure. They were like, oh, I'll close it at 20 or 22. And like, hey, we could say, we don't have space for you, dude. Like, I can't take your $500,000. I can only take a $250,000, and we can only do this price. And they were like, great. And they were like, done, and they would wire it. So
How long does it take for them to wire the money?
I mean, a professional will do it within a few days. Like, you get the DocuSign done, they send you the wire. It's really, once the talking is done, it's like, and it's amazing. No lawyers, standard docs, wire transfer.
Yeah, because there's a misconception. Like, the way you think about it, it all sounds like such an uphill battle. And I only knew it until, obviously, when, even for you, you were the first investor for Mega, right? You were one of the first checks over there. Like, that, even that was really crazy. And it just, you don't ever realize until you hear it from somebody like yourself, where the expectation is this is months of preparation, months of meetings, months of rejection. Right. And by 12 months, you might have a dead business, right? And you might not even raise any cash at all. But realistically, if you have a strong, solid process, you could get this done in a matter of months, weeks, if not months, if you do it right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And the friction, like, the friction is psychological. It's not paperwork anymore. Like, the paperwork, and I mean, sometimes sometimes VCs will overcomplicate things a little bit, which I don't like. You should push back on that. But sometimes they'll want a board seat, or they'll want a side letter. It's called a side letter. And that's where you make actual changes to the safe. Now, some of them are normal and fair, and if they want them, you can think about it and give it to them. But sometimes they'll come in and say, oh, we want to do a priced round, and we want a board seat, and we want all these rights and privileges and stuff like that. You don't have to take them because now the market is standard. Like anything before the Series A is like simplified and standardized. So now Series A is a whole different ballgame. The psychology is kind of similar-ish, but usually by then you have a lot more numbers to look at. You kind of already know the market pretty well. Like you're not asking for intros as much for a Series A, like you're established. And they'll come in and really, there's terms. Like they want a board seat, they want rights, they want this and that, information, da-da-da-da-da. That's a real negotiation. But for seed, anything up to the Series A, like you shouldn't be negotiating on like legal terms. Like you're not doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that's it?
I think that's pretty much everything, man.
That's round one. Because I think that maybe, mate, we might have to do your next 5 rounds. So we got the pre-seed done.
Yeah.
Let's go raise this, and then we'll do, all right, get your seed ready, get your Series A, B, C, D, and IPO. I think we might have to do a couple of presentations. What would you say, last question then before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish someone had told you before your first raise?
Personally, again, I came from this kind of modest background. It took me a while to figure out that this is like a go for broke kind of a market. So you're all in, you're shooting for the $1 billion outcome all the time, all your language, all your behavior, everything you're doing. And it has to be real. Like you have to really mean it. And if that works, the market here is going to really love you. If not, just bootstrap and like build a business. Like you can build a great profitable business without VC money. VC's only for that segment. It has to be a standard, like hopefully clean paperwork, US docs, regular co-founders, they're committed, they have a good profile, the market's massive, there's a big opportunity, something has changed in the landscape so you can do the $1 billion thing. But if that's not your profile, like there's no shame in just building a business on your own, especially now. You can build some code and just get out there. Like I built an 8-figure services company with no money. You can do that. Like that's a great life. Like I take profits out of it. It's a whole different animal. I can expense things. Like it's like a wonderful life as well. But if you're going to do the VC thing, look like a VC company and really mean it and fucking go for it. Like that's it. Like that's it. Like no, it's not for shy, modest, hedged. It's like, you're going for it.
Balls to the wall. I think that's a good way to wrap it up then. I'm going to push, that's the pod, so I'm going to push stop, but then let's get me, and any last words, Andrew?
No, hey, good luck out there.
All right, cool. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this episode and staying here the whole way through. If you like what you saw, click subscribe. It'll take you 2 seconds. It helps me reach amazing guests and deliver valuable content for you. And if you ever want to find out what we do as a business, go to www.gorevintel.com, and that is the place where we help you make decisions that are backed by intelligence, and it's for founder CEOs. That's it for me for now. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.